Hello and welcome to the Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps and Pipedrive marketplace. My name is Bruce Bignell. I own and run Evolve. We're a technology consultancy based in the UK, working globally, and we specialise in helping people get the most out of Pipedrive through implementation, consultancy and training. Today I have the great pleasure to be joined by Riaz Kanani, the CEO and founder at RadiateB2B. RadiateB2B is an intent data ABM platform designed for small to medium-sized businesses. Now, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Riaz for a couple of reasons. One, because he's a thoroughbred entrepreneur, having founded his first business, Ryken, in 1995, which was on a mission to help businesses understand and take advantage of the internet. Yes, he started an internet business in 1995. And he continues his journey with technology into 2023 as a Techstars mentor, conference speaker, and CEO of RadiateB2B. He's a self-confessed mix of marketeer, technologist, and entrepreneur in no particular order. And I've known Riaz for a little over a year now, following a recommendation from a mutual friend. And it's led to many chance encounters at events and led to other great conversations and this podcast that we're listening to today. So without further ado, Riaz, please introduce yourself and RadiateB2B to our audience.
Yes, thank you, Bruce. Good to be here. Riaz Kanani. I founded Radiate, unbelievably now, I guess it's nearly 6 years ago. I think we're about a month out. And, so we're an intent data platform, we're an ABM advertising platform. But if you rewind back to the very beginning 6 years ago, we had this view that B2B marketing had to change, right? It was becoming really obvious, I guess. I mean, everyone was doing the same thing, right? Write lots of content, put it out there, run events, nurture them through, pass them across to sales. And the reality is we're in this content arms race where basically every year you needed more budget just to stand still, which of course doesn't happen because CEOs eventually are going to turn around and say, no, you're going to have to do better with the same budget. And in the last 12 months, obviously budgets have been cut. So we thought that given the rising cost of acquisition, we basically, the acquisition cost 6 years ago, and they've continued to rise since, were double the level of which I'd have been fired when I was CMO at a SaaS business 5-7 years before that. So they'd grown significantly. And we felt that there was a better way of driving marketing opportunities. And for the last 3 or 4 years, that's really come under the umbrella of account-based marketing. And I remember standing in a room 6 years ago saying, we're going to build an ABM platform. And the response was, well, that's a bit niche, isn't it, Riaz? Are you sure that's going to be a big enough opportunity? And if you're an entrepreneur and you're selling in a room and you get that sort of response, you actually usually know you're onto something because you can see something that the wider market, someone I respected hugely, does not see. And sure enough, it exploded. But actually, you fast forward a couple of years down the line, so I guess 2020, 2021, what we began to realize was it wasn't just affecting B2B marketing. It was affecting B2B sales as well.
I was just about to say that blend, I felt it around 2019 when you have the lead sales guys are like, okay, how can we do more here? How can we put all this marketing tech, but what can we do at the sharp edge of sales?
That's right. And the days of just having to pick up the phone and make 100 calls a day or send lots of email out, and that would be enough to generate meetings, are long gone. It was gone 2 years ago, and today it's a distant memory. You have to be more sophisticated. You have to be cleverer in the way you do outbound selling. And we knew one of the interesting things we found was actually that those sales development teams were very, very happy to look at data that was outside of their bubble. It took marketing a few years to, get outside of the bubble of we only care about people once they convert on the website. Today, the total amount of time spent by buyers is about 17% with vendors. And they typically engage vendors much, much later. They will typically come to your website a couple of times before they raise their hand. And so,
and they're coming to you much more informed, right? Because they've done their research elsewhere. So when
that's right,
they're in front of your sales guys need to be good, because that's a real differentiator.
That's
they're
right.
coming to you.
Yeah, exactly. And so we wanted to basically find a way that we could help those sales and marketing teams get in front of those companies earlier. Because if you as a vendor were waiting till later, till they put their hand up, you can sure as hell predict that they've already started to shortlist in their head who their favorite vendors are. Either that's because they've got a relationship with somebody already, or from the research they've been doing, they've been building a picture. And so how could we get salespeople in front of companies when the timing was actually right? And that's how we ended up building the intent data, account-based advertising, ABM advertising platform, which in a nutshell, what it's doing is combining anonymous activity on your own website and looking for behavior that suggests buying intent, and combining it with 5,000 plus publisher data from across the internet that's powered by Bombora. We combine those two to give you a single score that allows you to say, right, these are the companies that are showing the highest intent, these are the companies that are showing low intent, and so the high intent we pass to sales, the lower intent we pass to marketing, and then marketing basically sifts that larger chunk of companies to figure out, well, actually, these are the companies sales should speak to. And so you get in earlier. You actually also have an idea of the angle, right? So typically as a business, you don't just have a single message that you go to market with. There's some nuance, right? Companies will come at you because they've got a slightly different use case. And so we can usually identify the nuance so that when you do reach out to these companies, you can angle it from whatever angle you know is right for them, for the buyer, rather than yourself. And then, a lot of companies out there, especially, what we're doing is bringing it to these smaller, mid-sized companies that are selling to enterprise. So it's not enterprise selling to enterprise. It's companies under 1,000 employees.
So why did you choose that? Is that because the world that you knew from your CMO days, and you knew the richness that those kind of SMEs are looking to? Like, where did that kind of insight come from?
Why did I pick that particular group of companies as the niche? I'm a huge fan of HubSpot, and I'm a huge fan of Pipedrive. Those are my two favorite marketing automation CRM platforms, and they go after a niche that almost everybody in the MarTech sales tech space ignores, right? Everybody goes after enterprise. They all want to go up market.
It's funny, yeah.
Yeah. And enterprise is great. It's very, very profitable. But there's a huge swathe of companies that sit in the mid-market and smaller companies. We can't yet service the smallest companies, mostly because you need a sales team to use our platform, or a marketing team to use our platform. If you don't have one or both of those, then you can't get enough value from the platform to use it. But that's why is I like going after what I think are underserved markets, and I like a challenge.
Which is, I mean, there's something in there, and I don't know if it was from your previous experience. Like for as an example, Evolve, we're basically trying to. Yes, we work with Pipedrive and getting people to implement Pipedrive, train them on Pipedrive, consultant Pipedrive.
Yes.
But really, the North Star is helping small and scaling businesses, from $500,000 to £60 million per year.
Yeah.
That kind of mid-market business.
Yeah.
Digitize their processes. The tech stack's changed so much in the last decade, and there's this whole long tail of kind of middle England and middle middle business that sometimes some of them are still working on spreadsheets.
That's right.
We got people that are closing their POs and invoices are sent out and tracked on a spreadsheet, like £10 million a quarter. How do you know what's going to close if you're running your sales like that? Even if you've got a 10% or a 5% uptick in what you're closing, then there's value in implementing new technology there. So I was interested why you focus on that niche. If there was anything else,
and I have had experience there, obviously. Certainly, Silverpot, the business I sold my startup to, and then we ended up exiting it to IBM, was primarily a mid-market marketing automation platform, and so certainly we had experience there. But yeah,
so how's ABM changed, right? Because I and what were the intent signals that you could capture 6 years ago, and what are you now being able to? How's it changing?
I mean, IBM originally was all about targeting a single company.
Logo. Let's get that logo. Let's go get it. Yeah.
And probably for most of the last 7 years, it's really expanded to be about targeting a cluster of companies or a target segment. Hundreds, maybe low thousands. And so you got this idea of one-to-many ABM. But I think we've now started to take the next step beyond this. And the platforms have become sophisticated enough and easy enough to use. And obviously that's our goal, is to make it really easy to use, that you can now integrate the ABM techniques into a broader demand generation campaign, or into broader go-to-market strategies. And so whilst we have the ABM advertising platform, which targets advertising across the internet at a specific list of companies, whether that's companies showing intent or your customers that you want to expand or whatever, and for most of the last 5 years, those have sat within an account-based marketing program. For the last couple of years, we've seen them also start to sit within broader demand generation programs as well. At the end of the day, these are just higher value prospects that you want to have awareness of you as a business. And then when they start to show some level of intent, to then, invest further in, whether that's to send further messaging or DM, or to invite to an event, or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
From an intent data standpoint, every day I see new intent data providers, and actually one of the things I say to a lot of people is understand where the intent data is coming from. So in our case, our intent data comes from your website, and it comes via Bombora from those 5,000 plus publishers. And so,
is that very much UK based? Again, I don't know about the
yeah, it's global. And we obviously the best quality data comes from North America, UK, Western Europe. The really key thing with that data is that what you're seeing is real activity. I think something like a decade ago, there was a really big focus on something called attention. It was a big thing around social media at the time, and it was this idea that one of the things that is constant with everybody is their decision around where they pay attention, and understanding where people pay attention says a lot about an individual. And when it comes to the workplace, we don't spend time on researching particular topics without good reason. And so what we're looking for from the intent data is to be able to map, well, okay, this particular company is spending time, investing time, looking at a particular topic much more than normal. And the nice thing about that particular set of data is we can do so without using third-party cookies. So we can be fully GDPR compliant because we can only look at it from a company level. We're not using bidstream data, which is technical jargon for saying the backbones of the ad tech world, which the ICO ruled as being illegal.
Yeah, I've heard there are some other intent data companies that are using that and maybe shouldn't be.
Yeah, and I guess it's fine.
Part of it, isn't it?
It's fine in the US. It's just in the UK and Europe it's problematic. And then there's other types, right? So there's community review websites. You can go to G2 and you can purchase intent data, and that shows you, the source of that is activity on their community website. So it's a nice way of describing that. And so that's another angle. And there's lots. Some platforms are sharing event registration data as another form of intent. So understanding what you're looking at is quite important.
Yeah. And is that something that you would always anyone that's getting into this ABM or would you call it ABS, account-based sales, account-based marketing piece? From an education standpoint, you say, look, understand where your data is coming from, which then will drive the attention or the insights that you're going to come out at the other side. Would that be right?
That's right. Because at the end of the day, when we do the advertising piece, we know that's the earliest way to identify intent. But not everybody can be running advertising campaigns 24/7. All the time. The intent data then that we have, so the browser publisher-led intent data and the intent data on your own website, then identifies the next step in the buyer journey, if you like, right the way through to close. And so that's the data or the buying cycle that we cover. And then community review data typically comes a bit further along. And so I kind of think about it as being, if we're identifying companies that aren't on your website and they haven't yet got there, these are companies that, they should know about you and they haven't. And so you're basically paying so that you know who you might be missing out on from an opportunity standpoint, kind of like PPC and search, right? Is ideally you want everybody to find you on organic search, but in reality, you're going to miss some and they're going to come through via PPC.
Yeah, and who should take ownership of it? I'm just thinking from a ABM probably has just like any marketing budgets that they've had or PPC budgets, not marketing budgets. PPC budgets were always more backed than a SEO budget because there was like a real clear ROI, right?
That's right.
From a marketing standpoint, you could I'm going to put £100,000 into this because we know the lifetime value, and we know we're going to get a 3x return on that. SEO and content teams are always arguing for, look, just let us build this out. We won't have to spend all that money over there. But so you always have those kind of internal conversations. But from if you now got this intent data that we can lean on to focus our marketing efforts, so retargeting ads and or retargeting our sales outbound efforts to kind of double down or triple down on a certain area, who should be leading that? Is that marketing? Is that sales? Is there someone in the middle? Obviously, we've heard of roles like a CRO now, and because the growth of those those types of roles are really growing. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, CROs typically get us the fastest, if you like, because they end up looking over both sales and marketing. If you have a very well-aligned sales and marketing team, again, you're going to understand us very, very quickly. Because what we're doing is highlighting the companies that have got the highest intent, which comes to sales, and the companies that are showing intent that goes to marketing. And so we do straddle both sides of the fence. And we sell to both sales and marketing as a result. Typically, when we're selling to the sales team, it's because they care more about, they're managing the sales development team, the business development team. They care more about outbound and acting on this data to improve meeting generation.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not a fan of just building something because it's cool. I've always been, all of my startups have always been geared around the idea of data and understanding data. And so we measure everything we do. And we know that companies that are acting on this in social media, for example, will drive a 35% uplift in meeting generation. Likewise, from a marketing standpoint, if you're sending out marketing emails to these companies, you can get a 2 to 3x uplift in click rate versus the norm. And likewise with advertising on LinkedIn. And so that's important to us because at the end of the day, it's got to drive revenue.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's you mentioned obviously the size of the business that you work with. Are there typical industries? Because I just want to kind of bring it back to the audience. So a lot of people, I said to you kind of off camera, a lot of people that listen to this podcast are either on Pipedrive or considering the switch, right?
Yep.
Pipedrive is in that kind of SME scale up space with a lot of B2B software companies, construction firms, finance firms, whatever it might be. Who you did mention that a founder-led sales team probably wouldn't lean on this, but if you've got marketing or if you've got a sales team, what size of business should be using this? Are there any industries that this works really, really well for? What's your experience there?
So we work across industry. We've got the same sort of thing really as Pipedrive in terms of that sense, but they're all selling to larger businesses. The data only works if you are selling to mid-sized large companies. So if you are a business that's selling to small businesses, we're just not the right platform for you at all. Probably the sweet spot is around about, as a sort of starting point, is around about 3 to 5 salespeople. But we go right up to 100 salespeople sort of level. And so, again, in a way, that's quite similar, I think, to Pipedrive's, probably the upper end of Pipedrive's market.
Yeah. And it's getting me thinking about we actually spoke about this in person, about the kind of sales synchronicity, right? I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
This actually came from a previous guest, David Gable, the head of sales at Kixi.
Okay.
Shout out to David. And he uses really great term, sales synchronicity, where, again, old world sales, I'm going to do my outbound calling between 9 and 11. Great. I'm on the phone for that hour, for those 2 hours, or whatever it might be. However, if someone's just opened my email or just clicked a link, why don't I call them when it's good? We know that they're on the phone. We know that they've, again, your word, attention is with us and our business. They're running their own business and doing their own things, but they're literally looking at our email now. Why not give them a call then?
Yeah.
And so technology is allowing us to weave all these things together, right?
Yes.
So what's again, paint your picture. What is the roadmap for something like RadiateB2B in the Pipedrive space, in the CRM space, and that kind of intent data there?
Yeah. So we don't track individuals.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I'm not sure the world would be very happy to know we were tracking every individual business person around the globe.
Is that conscious? Because there's something that you said earlier about the kind of the why, right? And why ABM became a thing for you at the beginning, because the marketing got saturated. And I'm sure, I can't remember who, marketeers ruin everything, right? So there was a time when everyone read every email, I don't even look at my personal emails anymore. I use it as if I need to search for something, I search it and I find it. The only inbox I look at are my 3 business ones.
Yeah.
But my personal ones, my wife says, "Did you see this?" No, I didn't. It's an archive, and I'll search it, and it's perfect. But we certainly don't read them anymore. Anyway, but that's how things have changed, right? So
that's right.
So that was a conscious decision to not track individuals.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I had the advantage of being on the DMA email council many years ago when GDPR was being drafted. And you can see the direction of play, and it was always pretty clear that you are going to be less and less able to track individuals. And actually, for the most part, it's not completely true. There's the odd company here and there who this doesn't work for, but for the most part, we have a very defined persona and we have a very defined customer profile. And so knowing that, you can typically narrow down, if you know the location and you know the company, you can typically narrow down to a small group of people that you want to talk to. And invariably, you want, it always makes me smile when we talk about advertising campaigns with companies, because invariably they want to target the decision makers, right? They want to target the marketing directors or the sales directors, the HR directors, etc., etc. Yet the people who would have been researching on your website would have been the researchers.
Yeah.
Very unlikely to have been the senior decision maker. And so actually knowing the person on your website from a perspective of who you want to speak to, actually you probably can guess that, because you can go and look for the 4 or 5 people who are in your target persona. You can see who the researchers are who are likely to be on the site, and you can see who the senior decision makers are. And for the most part, if you didn't have that extra additional piece of intent data knowledge, you would have gone after the decision makers anyway, and ignored the researcher.
If you know the researchers coming on your site, it gives you an opportunity to create some content for that person. So do you have to communicate? Do you have to pitch this to your boss? Here's a one-pager of how to direct.
It's just clever sales, right? That's just using the data to actually act on it. And so, I remember, so we have the ability to see that live view of your website, and we know that if you do act on that piece of insight and call somebody within 5 minutes of them being on your site, you are much, much more likely to reach them than if you wait to 10 minutes.
I've seen some graphs where it really does drop off after it's a huge spike before 5, and then even after 15 minutes, just don't bother. It's just like being cold again.
Yeah, that's right. And so and when it comes to intent data, it's always going to be relatively delayed, right? So it's never going to be, someone was browsing 5 pages on this particular topic 2 seconds ago. It doesn't happen that way. And so you don't get that instantaneous part, if you like, but you don't need to. The fact that they are engaging on that topic means that you are 2 to 3x more likely to cut through the noise when you follow up with one of these companies than you would do otherwise. And so I had somebody on one of my LinkedIn lives end of last year who was talking about how when she was using intent data and she picked up the phone, the response that came across was, we were talking about that last week in our team meeting. That's, and so you do still get those sorts of things happening, but it's not quite so big brotherish.
So, question on that: how do you respond? Because I've had it where I've had people that have opened an email after 6 months, and I would give them a bell after, and they would say, "Good timing." We would just. Some people call it out and say, "What is this wizardry that you've got running?" And I've always seen it in 2 ways. Sometimes I would, if I know the person, I would say, "That's right." It is some Pipedrive
functionality.
But if I don't know them, I wouldn't even engage in it. I'd say, "Okay," and then kind of
move the conversation on.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you lean into it or not?
No, I guess I tend to move the conversation on. We tend not to track too much without being quite clear about it. At least we try to. Sometimes it sneaks through, but I tend to. I don't think people like to be surprised by being tracked. And the trick is to make sure they're aware of it. And it's one of the big challenges with email, actually, is that you do get tracked in email without actually often realizing it, if you're not tech savvy, and then obviously you're aware. So
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think not spending too much time on it is the right, because it also isn't that, it's surface level. It's not really a deep. What are you going to say? Oh yes, I did only call you here because of this. Do you want to buy or not? No, but it's a synchronous moment for you to
that's
get back
right.
in touch.
That's right, and it's just acting on signals. I mean, we've done it since forever, right? It used to be the job pages, right? So,
Yeah.
moving to a different job. Oh, I'll pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. It's basically the same principle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, RadiateB2B and Pipedrive, how do they integrate? What's the and how can people find out more?
So the easiest way to find out more is on our website. But we're more than happy to give a demo. So get in touch either via the website or connect with me on LinkedIn. The integration. One of the things I like about the world today versus 10 years ago is the quality of integrations it's just so much easier, right? I mean, what we're trying to do is to make things really easy for our customers. They tend to be smaller, they tend to have less time, and so it's as easy as going into our platform or into Pipedrive and going into the marketplace and selecting in our platform Pipedrive and in Pipedrive's platform RadiateB2B, and then you authenticate your account and off you go. It is as simple as that.
Nice. Yeah. So then we'll have a link in the description below for the demo there. Basically, the intent data plugs straight into your leads inbox in Pipedrive, which is very cool. So Riaz, as we look to close, this has been really fun. From my side, what's your story? How did you come to start RadiateB2B? How did you meet your co-founders? What was the story there? With this latest business.
So this is startup number 6. And unlike almost all my other startups, except for the previous one to this, I had said 10 years ago I would not do another startup. I had said I wouldn't even come back to the MarTech space. I was bored of the MarTech space. Everything was big data plus something we did 10 years previously, and it wasn't that interesting. And so for a bunch of years, I'd go in and help companies to scale, and I'd advise them on marketing, and I'd advise them on international expansion, operational type things. And I got bored of doing that very, very quickly, and basically said, actually, let's go and build something new. And so I potted around with a whole bunch of projects. And whilst I was doing that, someone pointed out to me, normally it's me pointing out to others. I normally have loads of ideas around things. And when it came to marketing, I was ignoring it. So no ideas. And someone pointed out to me that conversion cost change and how much it had gone up in the...
And is that from things like Facebook just rocketing up? And
it's from content
everywhere.
we're focused on B2B, so it was the amount invested in content marketing, it was the increasing cost of increasing CPMs in Facebook and even LinkedIn and the rest. And so you basically had a situation where the acquisition cost was so high that, and there was no sign of that ending, that you just felt there must be a new way of doing things that was more cost effective. I guess it was around the same time, or maybe a few years previous, there was the conversation about the oil sands in Canada, where they extract oil, but they can only extract oil economically at $100 a barrel or above. And the minute the price of oil drops below that, they have to shut down because it's just not viable. And it was that sort of approach that I brought to Radiate, really, which was we're at the point now where the cost of acquiring an opportunity is so high that there are new ways that we can do things that will allow you to acquire opportunities at a lower cost than actually what the traditional ways are costing today. And so that was sort of where we started with Radiate, because we knew that there was a lot of data out there. We knew it wasn't being used, and we knew we had quite a lot of scope from an acquisition cost standpoint to deliver value for our clients.
Yeah, I think there's two things I want to add so kind of bring into that. So one, it's kind of makes a lot of sense now with tech stacks being shrunk and efficiencies. How do you find efficiencies
Yeah.
with kind of bloated tech stacks? But then also, I just wanted to, who is your partner in crime here, and has it been the same person throughout every business that you've had? So obviously you mentioned your CTO here.
Yeah.
Has it been the same guy or person that's been with you for multiple businesses? And what keeps you together?
Yeah, so I typically never do solo founding of a startup. I think it's madness, and you're crazy to do so. And so most of my startups have always been with another guy, and he did join me initially for Radiate, and but decided he wanted to go back to the world of work. And so he left after a year. And then about a year after that, we brought in the CTO, who is somebody I'd worked with over 10 years at a previous company, Silverpop, that we'd exited to. And so it's been a good journey. I always say having a co-founder is like having another marriage in a way. There's a deep relationship there that it's different, obviously, from being married, but in some ways it's the same.
Yeah, you end up speaking to your business partner more than your wife.
That's probably true. Yeah.
It's no, I love it. So, last round of questions. These are quick fire questions, but they can be long form answers.
Okay.
What's your favorite Radiate B2B use case that you've seen someone use? So it might be a certain market that they've pulled up, or how sales and marketing work together. What's your favorite use case that you've seen there?
So, I mean, our clients experiment and do lots of random things. We've seen clients monitor their customers to identify whether they're looking to churn or not, which was an interesting one. Most of our clients, and my favorite by far, the ability to know when somebody is looking at a particular topic. And so for for biz dev, it's the simplest of use cases, but it's fire, right? It's just that knowledge of. There's a saying in marketing whereby if you just know the right time, the right place, and the right message, if you can get those three things right, you can close that customer, right? And we're able to uplift two of those three things. We can tell you the right time, and we can directionally tell you where your messaging should be. The place then is just left to be figured out. And so for me, that I love that. I think that's brilliant. And it's why I get so excited about what we're doing at Radiate is I think we're allowing our clients to get closer and closer to it. And then as we evolve, there's a whole bunch of new, really cool use cases coming down the pipe, especially for sales directors and marketing directors. But my CTO will kill me if I talk about it.
No, that's cool. I look forward to hearing more about it. Your piece there about the if you get those three things right, it's then it's like what I was thinking of. You could have the most thirst quenching drink that there is, but if someone's not thirsty, or if they haven't been looking for water for however long, and when it's, I'll give it to you when you're ready. Thanks. I'm not gonna try and push it on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably a bad analogy, but that's what came to my head.
No, it's right. At the end of the day, if you're in a water-rich place and there's water everywhere, it's probably not the place to sell water, is it?
Yeah.
I guess that's similar to the selling ice to the Eskimo saying, right? But if you're in the right place, that ice could be quite valuable.
Yeah, like a bar.
Yeah. That's why B2B is so much harder.
Yeah.
There aren't no B2B. There's very few B2B places you can go to sell to your customers, right, directly.
Yeah. And top tips for those getting started. We may have covered this. But top tips for those getting started in ABM. And top tips for those that are a seasoned pro and want to kind of get more out of the platforms.
Yeah, so I'd look at this as more sales go-to-market or marketing go-to-market than just ABM. So you don't need to have an ABM program. So that's, I guess, first tip. The second tip, and by far the most important, is to actually know your market, right? So what is your ideal customer profile? The last thing you want to know is, I want to know everybody in the world who is looking at, let's say you're a social media platform, and so I want to know everybody who's interested in buying a social media platform across the world, of every size that you can think of in every industry. Now, the reality is that will create so much noise that it's not much use to you. And so first step is to know, who are the right companies for you, understand the persona, so that once you do get the information from us, exactly who you should go after. And then if you can, tie that with advertising. So when you do cold advertising on LinkedIn, so you target an entire sector, typically it doesn't pay back. The conversion rates are so low that it doesn't return. If you do a retargeting campaign, just without our tech, usually the conversion rates are quite high, and enough to actually fund both the performance of that campaign itself and the cold campaign.
Enough to reinvest. Yeah,
but we give you even more than that, right? We give you all the companies that are actually interested, and so you get a significant uplift on conversion alongside it, and also you get the ability to influence people who are thinking about your topic right now. And so you don't have to be spending tens of thousands of pounds. Usually it's low thousands, £1,000, £2,000 a month sort of thing, to do that. And so we do that for a whole load of clients, and it works really, really well. So those are my tips for sort of starting out. My tips, if you're more sophisticated, really is to think about streams, if you like. So most of our clients will have half a dozen topics that they'll be monitoring at any one moment in time, and those topics will guide the sales teams and the marketing teams around what is it about this particular customer, this opportunity, that's interesting to them. And so our most sophisticated clients are basically taking that data and then nurturing them with a focus on that particular angle. So company X might be, let's do email marketing. You might be interested in personalization in email marketing. You might be interested in newsletters, or you might be interested in automation, right? If you're an email marketing agency, you could be selling any of those three things quite easily. And so depending on which of those three they were showing intent for, you could create streams of either emails or advertising or your sales scripts around those streams. And so when they come in, you are able to really actually tailor your messaging, and obviously it gives a dramatic uplift in performance when you do that, unsurprisingly, because you're much more relevant.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a really nice use case. Pipedrive.
Yeah.
Have you got any feature requests?
Yes, I'm not sure though if they'll ever do this. But I'm a data guy and I like clean data.
Yeah.
But Pipedrive's one of its biggest selling points is how easy it is to use and get started and get moving on.
Yeah.
But I would like it to have basically stronger fields, so that if I create a company with the same domain name, for example, it recognizes that already exists. Or if I create a contact with the same email address, the same thing, right? It doesn't have it has the deduping capability.
Yeah.
But I'd rather it just picked it up at the time of creation. And so there's better data quality tools within Pipedrive, so that your data didn't get messy as much over time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's I was talking to someone else about this the other day. Data claim, any we all talk about data, shit data in, shit data out, but sometimes it can just get messy. Someone else is logged back in from the same business, and I think that's a really really good point. Well, who knows, that they might be looking. I know Sean, the CPO, has been working a lot on the back end, getting rid of some legacy things, and fingers crossed.
You never know
on that piece.
Yeah.
Well, Riaz, thank you, and thank you for you guys listening. You've been listening to the Evolve Pipedrive podcast. We talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and Pipedrive marketplace. At Evolve, we're a technology consultancy based in the UK, working globally, specialising in helping scaling businesses do more with Pipedrive and their wider tech stack through implementation, consultancy, and training. If you found this useful, please let us know what you think in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, or share with someone that you think will find this useful. We value all of your feedback. And Riaz, one last time, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bruce. Really good to be here.